Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. This is Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And good morning, everybody. Happy game day. I'm Gary Harris, and you're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff. It's the Iron Bowl edition as Alabama is set to take on Auburn for the 85th time in this famed and storied in-state rivalry, and we've got it covered for you from every possible angle. So let's go. As always, we begin with Bama Headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama Headlines.
And the biggest headline, obviously, Alabama head coach Nick Saban will not be on the sideline today. Coach Saban tested positive this week for COVID-19, and unlike last month when the test turned out to be a false positive prior to the Georgia game, Coach Saban has experienced some very mild symptoms from the coronavirus, and he is at home in isolation. He has been talking to the team, watching practices, and in constant communication with the coaches and players this week. But once the game starts, he is allowed no communication with anyone on the Alabama sideline or in the press box. Well, the Crimson Tide could actually clinch the SEC West Division title today and a spot in next month's SEC Championship game with a win in the Iron Bowl combined with a Texas A&M loss. The Aggies host LSU this evening at Kyle Field. Steve Sarkisian will be trying to make sure the Tide gets that done. We've got a stacked show for you, full of Iron Bowl content, plus interviews with Alabama's Director of Athletics, Greg Byrne, Crimson Tide men's golf coach Jay Seawell, the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham, as William Galloway talks to him as we take you behind enemy lines, as well as Danielle Winningham, the Executive Director of the Tuscaloosa County Industrial Authority. Well, as I said at the top, in Bama Headlines, Nick Saban will miss today's game. The first time in his 47-year coaching career that he won't be with his team for the football game. Coach Saban is in COVID-19 quarantine. According to the rules, he will be officially cut off from all communication with his staff and the team 90 minutes before kickoff. The 2:37 kickoff time means he will be done a little after 1 o'clock. Coach Saban says he has full confidence in his staff, which includes former head coaches as analysts like Charlie Strong, Butch Jones, Major Applewhite, and Mike Stoops, as well as today's acting head coach, Steve Sarkisian, who coached at the University of Washington and at the University of Southern California.
I have confidence in our coaches and our players that, they'll be able to do what they have to do. I mean, we all got to live with the consequences of what happens, whether I'm standing there or not. That's something I hope everybody realizes.
Well, obviously, Coach Saban will be watching the game while he's in quarantine today, and he won't be just watching on television. He's got a special extra-large monitor at his home, kind of like a coaching camera angle, so he can break it down as it's going. Coming up a little bit later, CTKO's Julia Westerman will take a closer look at the impact, potentially, from Coach Saban's absence this afternoon. Alabama opened the week as a 25-point favorite over Auburn, 24-25 in that range. And the news that Coach Saban would miss the game really didn't change the line that much. It goes off today right around 24. Alabama is the #1 team in the country. This note, analyst A.J. Milwee will be promoted to the role of offensive assistant since they're one coach short with Coach Saban not there. And for Auburn, of course, they will be trying to take advantage of mistakes. Alabama made them last year in the Iron Bowl, 2 pick sixes mainly, but others as well, as the Tigers took a 48-45 win at Jordan-Hare Stadium, a heartbreaker for Alabama. Auburn's defense has shown that it still has a knack for flipping the field. Last weekend against Tennessee, the Vols were on the verge of taking the lead until you got it. Smoke Monday intercepted Jarrett Garantano in the end zone and returned it 100 yards for pick 6. Auburn won the game 30-17.
It could change the momentum of the game. Defensive scores, and it builds confidence in the defense. Going into the game, you got to make plays like that.
Since I've been here, they usually always had a good defense. The corners is really good. They got a lot of speed on the secondary to very physical too. And they're just always a good team on defense.
Well, Bryant-Denny Stadium, though, seems to give Alabama a big edge, a home field advantage. In the past decade, Alabama has not lost an Iron Bowl on its field. The last time was 2010, and the Tide has basically won by big scores in all of those wins in 2012, 2014, 2016, and 2018. Here are some numbers to keep an eye on in today's game. Najee Harris has 16 rushing touchdowns this season, the most in college football. Expect him to get plenty of opportunities against Auburn. The Tigers defense has allowed more than 200 yards rushing twice in the last 3 games. So they have been struggling against the run. Bo Nix, much better at home than he is on the road. You've heard about that, I'm sure. It's just he's a different quarterback at Jordan-Hare versus being in enemy territory. And Auburn's defense has not given up more than 30 points in any game this season. Alabama will be looking to change that today, that's for sure. All right, what about the weather? It's always a big story when it comes to football games in late November. CTKO's Christopher Pipkin joins us now with a look at our Iron Bowl forecast. Christopher, what's in store today here in Tuscaloosa?
Well, it looks like it's going to be a great day in terms of weather for a lot of Tuscaloosa, a lot of central Alabama too. This is a look right now on the Bryant-Denny Stadium, the Walk of Champions down here. Not really busy at all. Would hardly even tell it's a game day, but of course that's going to change as we get closer to the afternoon and towards game time. Temperature right now, though, at 60 degrees. We're going to be in those mid-60s for our kickoff as we get into the later part of today. A lot of us still warming up across the map. Haleyville up there towards upper 40s, but of course a different story here for Tuscaloosa, where we're sitting at 60 degrees. What about the bigger picture? For satellite, we do have a few clouds that are trying to move into the area, and we'll continue to try to push into central Alabama as the day does progress. Now, that's not going to have too much of an effect of our temperatures. It will allow it to stay in the mid-60s. Here's your forecast. At least going into the kickoff, notice as those cloud coverage does increase into the halftime hour, but notice the temperature staying in those 60s, so it's going to be fairly nice. And we're going to stay dry, Gary, all throughout the game forecast, so definitely is going to be a pretty nice one in terms of weather.
All right, Christopher, thank you. We'll check back in with you again a little bit later. Well, still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff, Alabama center Landon Dickerson has earned an extra game that he'll play. We'll explain. And the latest on head coach Nick Saban will tell you where he thinks he could be missed the most during today's Alabama-Auburn game. Plus, what kind of impact could it have on the other sideline? We'll tell you Auburn's response to the news of Coach Saban's absence. So stick around. CTKO will return, the Iron Bowl edition, right after this.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
I think the only thing that's going to be missing is there are going to be circumstances and situations that could come up in the game that sometimes you have to make a decision on as a head coach, whether it's to go for it on 4th down or personnel decisions that may impact the game that you're just not going to be there to make. But I do think that we have some very capable assistants to be able to handle those situations.
And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff here in our WVUA 23 digital media studio inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'm Gary Harris, and again, the big news, Nick Saban will not coach in today's Alabama-Auburn game. CTKO's Julia Westerman is live with more on the impact of his positive COVID-19 diagnosis and everyone involved.
Yeah, Gary, the last time Alabama played a game without Saban on the sidelines, I was 7 years old, and Joe Kynes was the interim head coach. This afternoon is going to feel very different for fans and players alike, even more so with it being the Iron Bowl.
When Nick Saban tested positive for COVID-19 prior to the Georgia game, no one believed it could be real. Lucky for Alabama fans, it was ultimately a false positive. But leading up to the Iron Bowl this week, that luck ran out. Alabama will have to compete this afternoon without its head coach.
It's going to be a really weird deal playing Iron Bowl without Nick being there. You know, the Iron Bowl is a special deal, and, you know, just for me personally, I mean, coaching against Nick's a really big deal, and for him not to be there, it's going to be really weird.
Last time around, the question centered on if Saban would be able to get the negative tests he needed to be able to return. With symptoms this time, there is no question he is out against Auburn, his first absence in 187 games with the Tide. As much of an impact as this news creates, as well as the buzz about the Iron Bowl in general, Saban does not want the narrative to be centered on him.
It's not about me. It's really about the players. You know, I want to be there for the players to try to help them be able to play the best, to inspire them any way that you can as a coach and a teacher, to get the best out of them.
Steve Sarkisian and Pete Golding will still be on the sidelines to call the plays on both sides of the ball, but the players will have to ignore the obvious hole in the coaching staff. Saban will have to settle with viewing the rivalry action from home.
The biggest thing I'm going to miss about it is being with our players, being a part of our team, and helping those players have the best opportunity to be successful.
Hopefully the Crimson Tide can reclaim the Iron Bowl crown this afternoon after last year's loss on the Plains and improve to 8-0. It has not been announced yet whether or not Saban will be able to coach next weekend against LSU. Live for CTKO, I'm Julia Westerman.
Thank you, Julia. Well, Landon Dickerson will join his teammate and fellow offensive lineman Deontay Brown at the Reese's Senior Bowl in January. The Crimson Tide's huge 6'6", 325-pound offensive lineman has started the past 16 games. He's played center and guard since he's been at UA. Dickerson has also proven himself to be one tough hombre. The Reese's Senior Bowl is scheduled for January 30th in the port city of Mobile. Well, coming up on CTKO, the college football playoff released its first rankings of the season this past Tuesday. We'll tell you where the selection committee put the Crimson Tide. I bet you already know. And still to come on CTKO, a quarterback conversation, what Bo Nix and Mac Jones had to say about each other and this big game. That's next on Crimson Tide Kickoff. We'll be right back after this.
I remember when Coach Bryant first came here, it was going to be a lot. Obviously, it's riding on the game every year, but some years the Southeastern Conference bowl games, all. And this particular one was a lot riding on it. And I remember Coach Bryant the last day at practice, he was telling the players where we staying here, going over some things, and not really saying an awful lot about Auburn, as I remember. And he said, okay, well, that's it, we'll go. And then everybody started walking off. And he finally called everybody back. And he said, well, Saturday up in Legion Field, we used to call it Legion Field in Birmingham, we're going to play Auburn. He said, we're going to whoop there, you know what. And it was just kind of like, oh, yeah, by the way, sort of thing. And they did, as I remember, whoop there, you know what.
Yeah, Coach Bryant whipped Auburn a lot, 19-6 against the Tigers in his 25 years as the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Always a pleasure hearing from Eddie Conyers. All right, quarterback. It is the marquee position on a football field. And quite honestly, who wins today's game between Alabama and Auburn could come down to which quarterback plays the best. Last year, Mac Jones lit it up statistically, but Bo Nix seemed to make the key plays for Auburn when he had to make them, and Auburn won the game, ultimately 48-45. Bo Nix is a tough-as-nails quarterback. Mac Jones is a guy who's throwing it as well as any quarterback in the country. Here's Bo Nix on Mac Jones.
Yeah, he does a great job of managing the game, getting the ball to his players around him. Obviously, he's got a great running back, great offensive line, great receivers. That helps a lot, but he does a good job of managing the game, taking completions, and knowing what to do with the ball.
The phrase game manager sure is an interesting way to describe the quarterback who's ranked first in the country in QBR and has the #1 passer rating in the NCAA. Sure, Mac has all the weapons around him, but Alabama wouldn't be where they are without Mac as QB1. Jones never had the chance to respond to Nix's statement, but when asked earlier this week about ratings as a player coming out of high school, it's apparent that Mac stays focused on the task at hand and doesn't take in the outside noise. And that dates all the way back to recruiting in high school.
You know, people always give you a rating or whatever in high school, but once you step on campus, it doesn't really matter. And, you know, we're just trying to, get better every week, and you can only look back to see how far you've come, but you can't really focus on, oh, I was a 3-star, I'm this or that. I mean, people are going to criticize you or give you too much praise every week. So you kind of just have to stay even-keeled and just do your job and get better every week.
William Galloway reporting for Crimson Tide Kickoff. Two really good quarterbacks. Well, the Iron Bowl isn't the only big game in the conference today. CTKO's Stu McCann now with this week's Around the SEC.
Flashback to 1991. The movie Necessary Roughness is released, centering around a fictional Texas State University football armadillos. One of the storylines in the movie, the head coach recruits a member of the women's soccer team to be the kicker. Now, that's Hollywood. This is real. Today, Vanderbilt's Sarah Fuller will become the first female to suit up for an SEC football program when Vandy plays at Missouri. Fuller is a goalie for Vanderbilt's women's soccer team, which just won an SEC championship. Florida fans are really buying into the Heisman hype around quarterback Kyle Trask. He leads the nation with 31 touchdown passes, and one fan is already reserving a spot for the Trask statue outside the Gators' Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, right beside the other past Heisman winners for the Florida Gators. Trask and Florida host Kentucky. Finally, the SEC's other in-state rivalry game, the Egg Bowl. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin versus Mike Leach in Mississippi State. Most are expecting a shootout. Some of the sports books in Las Vegas actually put the over-under at 67. But consider this. A previous meeting back in 2013, Leach at Washington State, Kiffin at USC, and Leach's Cougars win the game without scoring a touchdown. 10-7, final score, WSU. So nothing is for sure anymore. That is around the SEC for CTKO. I'm Stu McCann.
Appreciate it, Stu. Now here is today's SEC schedule. 2 games are already in progress. 6th-ranked Florida hosting Kentucky in the Swamp, and Vanderbilt is at Missouri. The Iron Bowl, as you know, kicks off a little after 2:30. 2 more games this evening. LSU at 5th-ranked Texas A&M, and number 9 Georgia travels to Columbia, South Carolina, to take on the Gamecocks. South Carolina interim head coach Matt Bobo faces his old school. He's a former UGA quarterback and assistant coach and one of Kirby Smart's best friends. He gets to leave that friendship at the gate of the stadium today. The first edition of this season's college football playoff rankings released this past Tuesday night, and the main portion of the top 25 went pretty much as expected. Alabama opened the rankings at number 1, followed by number 2 Notre Dame. After those 2 undefeateds, 1-loss Clemson checked in at number 3, ahead of unbeaten Ohio State at number 4, likely due to the fact the Buckeyes have only played 4 games to this point and won't get to play today. Number 5 Texas A&M is the first team out of the playoff with its lone loss to top-ranked Alabama, while number 6 Florida's only defeat is at the hands of the Aggies. With the SEC championship game still to come, the Gators likely control their own destiny as long as they win out. One surprise to me was Georgia with 2 losses, checked in at number 9, and Brigham Young unbeaten way back down at number 14. Well, still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff. Basketball season tipped off for both the Alabama men and women this week. What did the first glimpse tell us about the Crimson Tide hoop squads? And Alabama men's golf coach Seawell talks about the fall season and explains what makes the competitive spirit of former Crimson Tide golfer Justin Thomas so special. All that coming up on CTKO.
We always have a thing we talk about: what's your record against Tennessee, what's your record in the national championship, and what's your record against Auburn.
I'm 2-1, huh? Dang. 2-2?
1-2.
Oh, 1-2. Oh, shoot. I'm 1-2, so. Man, I didn't know I'm 1-2.
He hopes to be 2-2 after today. You know these seniors don't want to leave Alabama with a losing record against their in-state rivals, the Auburn Tigers. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. The college basketball season is underway, and Alabama tipped it off this past Wednesday night. CTKO's Julia Westman rejoins us to discuss the Tide's first game of the season. Julia?
Tide Hoops fans tuned in to see the start of the season, but Nate Oates was focused on how old and new pieces would fit together to form an effective product. Oates' second season with the team is off to a positive start after Wednesday's decisive win. Fans finally got to see sophomore Javon Quinterly on the hardwood, and he came to play. The guard was in for 26 minutes with 18 points, 3 assists, and 1 rebound. Petty Jones and Shackelford each saw over 25 minutes of play, the latter also scoring 18 points to lead the team in scoring with Quinterly and achieving his first career double-double. 10 of the team's players saw at least 10 minutes of gameplay, and head coach Nate Oates saw improvement in his team as a whole, but even more so on defense.
Way better than last year. I mean, it's been a huge point of emphasis for us really since the summer, since the spring, to be honest with you. Doing defensive breakdowns way back then, showing them we just took one concept at a time, you know, and rebounding, transition D, ball screen D. Starting way back last spring and the summer, you know, the fall, and we start real practice. We've been on him. I think his defense was great.
Alabama's next game is Monday in Asheville, North Carolina, the site of this year's Maui Invitational. The Tide faced Stanford at 8:30 on ESPN2. Live for CTKO, I'm Julia Westerman.
Thanks, Julia. The Maui Invitational in Asheville, North Carolina, only in 2020. Well, the Crimson Tide women's team looks to follow up its season opening win over Sanford with another strong performance tomorrow afternoon. Christy Curry's squad will host Houston Sunday at 2 p.m. at Coleman Coliseum. Earlier in the week, Alabama won its opener with an 83-53 win over the Bulldogs. Forward Jasmine Walker led the Crimson Tide with 22 points on 9 of 17 shooting, including going 3 of 5 from three-point distance. She also led the Tide with 7 rebounds. Nice game for her. Well, Alabama men's golf coach Seawell has led the Crimson Tide to 2 national championships and 2 national runner-up finishes, and his program has produced numerous PGA Tour players, including superstar Justin Thomas. CTKO's Kaylee Vance visited with Coach Seawell this week and got all the scoop on Bama men's golf.
Thanks, Gary. The men's golf team had 3 tournaments this fall, including a win at the Blessings Collegiate Invitational. I'm joined by head coach Jay Seawell for more. Coach, thanks for coming in.
Glad to be with you.
Coach, during the fall season, your team won the Blessings Collegiate Invitational, which was a huge championship, but didn't perform well during the Jerry Pate National Intercollegiate. What do you feel overall about the season?
Well, like I said, the win at the Blessings in Arkansas was huge. I thought it was a great start to the season. You know, we played an all SEC schedule, so it was basically the SEC championship. We did that 3 times, so I was really proud of our guys to come out of the gate. You know, especially with all that everybody's had to go through this, spring, this summer, and even into the early fall. And so to get off with a win, something our team has only done 5 times in the history of its school, which is to beat all SEC teams in a tournament. And so I'm really proud of that. And then the season goes, I think we learned a lot about ourselves, first in the win, and second at Vanderbilt. We had some COVID issues that we had to deal with and the adversity that goes with that. And I thought our guys responded really nice to that. And then at the end, at the Jerry Pate, which we hosted over in Birmingham, and we've usually had some great success. But however, it was we didn't play very good. And so I think it taught us a valuable lesson. If you're going to play in the SEC, you got to bring it every week. And I look forward to the spring because I think we learned a valuable lesson during the Jerry Pate.
The spring season is scheduled to begin on February 19th at the Seminole Invitational in Tallahassee. What does the team do between now and then?
Well, we're going to finish up school. Everybody's gone now home for either Thanksgiving or for, the break. We've sent all our guys are home, which is good. They need to spend some time at home, and they'll finish up their school for the next couple of weeks. And hopefully they'll enjoy a little bit of time with their families. They didn't get a chance to go home any in the fall because we just tried to keep everybody from, traveling and intermingling. And so they need a little family time. They need a little home time, which I'm excited about. And then we'll get them back here around the 10th or 11th of January and get started again. We're excited about our tournament schedule, excited about the spring. And so I know our guys will play some tournaments, will practice this winter, but mostly going to finish up their school and get a little home time, which is always good for a young boy.
What do you think is the potential of this team in the spring?
Well, I think we have the potential what we did at Arkansas. We have really good players. I think we have some good depth. We're still trying to find it. We're also very, very young. So I think that's why we were a little inconsistency. So I think we can be the team that played in Arkansas. We need to do that week in and week out. And so I hope we learn the lessons. And so, like I said, winning in Arkansas gives me and gives us a lot of confidence that we can be a championship caliber program this spring. And so that's what our goals are. And we look forward to the climb that mountain this spring.
How hungry are you for the program to win another national championship?
You're always hungry to win, that's for sure. That's why we do what we do. They're very hard to do. I'm thankful for what we've accomplished while we've been here. But those were in the past, and these young guys, we're good enough, but we also got a lot of work to do. And so I think the word hunger is a good word. Are we hungry enough? Are we willing to get in the dirt? Are we willing to work when maybe somebody is not, or when somebody is, to keep up? And so I think our players are hungry. I think we're still trying to teach them what that hunger looks like in your preparation. But me personally, absolutely. You never lose your hunger to win and to help your players become the best they can be.
ESPN did the feature on Nick Saban and Justin Thomas, which you were a part of. What similarities do you see between Coach on the football field and Justin Thomas when he's playing golf?
Well, they have a great desire to win. And it's what they really think about. They don't think about the fringes or the external things that go with winning or with athletics or things that are really big that go with it. You can just tell they're very focused in their goals, and they're very focused in how they prepare, and very single-minded when it comes to it. And so I've enjoyed to see their friendship grow and blossom since Justin was here and now on the tour. And so they are two very similar guys, and they both teach me a lot too as a coach to continue to push and never stop. And I think that's their biggest thing is you're never satisfied, and you never quit working. And I think the two of those do that together. There you go.
Thanks again, Coach Seawell, for joining us.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be with y'all in Roll Tide.
Alabama men's golf spring season picks up again on February 19th at the Seminole Invitational. Follow along with WVUA for all of your Alabama men's golf updates. For CTKO, I'm Kaylee Vance. Stick around for more.
And welcome back into Crimson Tide Kickoff. It's time for the Byrne Point with University of Alabama Director of Athletics Greg Byrne. And Greg, we love this segment. So glad that you've been with us this season. And now as the fall is counting down and the calendar is going to be turning into a winter here very soon, we're focused on moving ahead here with sports at the University of Alabama, and that means men's and women's basketball and gymnastics. Now, we're still facing COVID-19 challenges. What's the outlook, in your opinion, for these sports?
Well, I think it's going to be like everything we face in the fall. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be a roller coaster with it, and we're going to do our very best to manage it for the health and well-being of our student athletes, while still giving them the opportunity to compete, and hopefully giving our fans something to watch too. And whether it's a small percentage in person, or hopefully a lot of folks can watch it on TV and enjoy the ride with our teams. But we're continuing to move forward, and excited about that. We've got some non-conference games that we're hopefully going to get to play in, both for the men's and women's teams, and then have a chance to go into SEC play. I think the SEC on the men's basketball side is really improving across the board. There are no layups, so to speak, when you look at the schedules. And on the women's side, I think the number one team in the country will be our first home game against South Carolina on the women's side, and so. It's exciting to see us moving forward and having the opportunity to play. Look forward to having some fans at the games, but it's going to be much like what our fall has been and what our world has been. There's going to be disruptions. There's going to be challenges, and we're going to do our very best to navigate those and support our student athletes throughout it.
You already referenced it, but both men's and women's basketball and gymnastics, when it starts up, are high-volume spectator sports in person at Coleman Coliseum. We know that there won't be full attendance, and I assume you're still working on how the numbers will be dealt with in terms of how many people will be let in for these events?
Yeah, we obviously have to follow the state of Alabama health guidelines. I know if you go look at my Twitter account, I think people think that I just have a magic wand and can just set whatever attendance that we want to. We obviously are going to follow the guidelines, and that's important. And our approach has been, and this will be the case for men's and women's basketball, this will be the case for gymnastics too, and we're obviously very excited to get our gymnastics season up and going too. At the end of the day, and what I've told our coaches in my communication with our student athletes, we're just trying to move forward. We're trying to survive this year and be respectful of what we're dealing with in the process, because we know if we make good decisions in the fall, it gives us the best opportunity to have a winter sports season. If we make good decisions in the winter sports season, it gives us the best opportunity to have a spring sports season. And we want to do that for all of our student athletes. It was one of the most challenging things, I know I try not to use the word I too much, but I've ever faced as an AD last spring when I had to walk into the conference room here at Mount Moore and tell our head coaches for our spring sports, they're done, and have that communication with our student athletes that, hey, you may be a senior and you may be able to come back, but a lot of them had already made other plans. That their seasons were done. We don't want to do that again. And so we're trying to make good, cautious decisions to allow us to move forward and listen to the health experts and listen to the doctors that we are working with, and obviously being very respectful of the guidelines that the state of Alabama has put forward.
I do want to ask you this question because of what you mentioned about having to tell those spring sports that their seasons were over just like that in the snap of a fingers. And in the summer, there was a lot of speculation that we might not have sports at all, college sports, in this calendar year or this athletic year that we're in. How happy are you, even though it's been challenging, as you referred to, that we've had sports so far in the fall and we're anticipating having sports in the winter? Because there was a time when I assume from your chair as an AD that it was in question whether we have any sports at all.
Yeah, Gary, it was very serious questions. We had, still well into July, I didn't know if we were going to have sports this year. And we were able to be very slow in our decision making, which allowed us to get more information. As information came along that showed that there wasn't a lot, it couldn't really find any transmission of COVID through athletic contests, that it was more social. I've heard the term eat, meet, and greet. Those are the areas when you're eating together, when you're in meetings, when you're at social events. That's where the great majority of the transmission has been taking place. And I think I mentioned before, I think I got it by drinking water around somebody that had ended up testing positive the very next day. Didn't know about it at the time. I was around them for 5 minutes drinking water. That's where I think I transmitted COVID. And so, hey, we just didn't know at the time what was going on. And so as we got more information, we were able to make better decisions. And while it's not perfect, and there is not a perfect scenario until we eradicate this virus, we also felt we could safely move forward and allow some normalcy, allow our student athletes to compete, to give the opportunity to improve themselves from an athletic standpoint, obviously be very focused on their academics, and have the opportunity to improve themselves socially as well. And we're trying to be focused on all those things as we're navigating these waters. So for a while, we were very unsure what was going to happen, but I'm sure glad we have been able to move forward.
Me too. We're thankful that we've had fall sports and we're looking ahead to winter sports and then hopefully spring sports as well. That's going to do it for this edition of The Byrne Point. For Greg Byrne, I'm Gary Harris. We'll talk to you again next week. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff here inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'm Gary Harris. And each week, we like to take you behind enemy lines to let you know what the opponent's thinking. CTKO's William Galloway joins us now. And this week, William, you had the opportunity to talk to the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham.
Hey, Gary. Auburn enters this Iron Bowl ranked number 22 in the college football playoff rankings, but they've struggled in certain areas this year. Andy said that today, the Tigers need to be exceptional in the running game.
If Auburn doesn't run the ball well against Alabama, in my opinion, the Tigers are in some trouble. When Auburn has been its best offensively this year, it has been able to run the football, and that opened up the passing game for the Tigers. When Auburn struggled a bit, the South Carolina game, the Georgia game especially, which was Auburn's first loss, it didn't run the ball very well at all.
Auburn is currently 5th in the SEC, averaging 170 rushing yards per game. For comparison's sake, Alabama is 3rd and averages 182 yards per game on the ground. Under center for Auburn, Bo Nix leads the Tigers into Tuscaloosa with a 1-0 career record in the Iron Bowl. Burcham says the key for Nix is limiting turnovers.
He threw an interception early against Tennessee, so Auburn had to break that trend to win the game, and it did. I think he's been a more efficient quarterback. I think he's made better decisions this year. I also think he's been a better runner this year, William. And I'm not just saying scrambling out of the pocket. When he is the primary threat on an offensive play, he's been very good. I think he has taken a big step forward from his freshman to his sophomore year.
Defensively for Auburn, slowing down the Crimson Tide is no easy task.
It's as good an Alabama offense as we've seen, I think, in quite some time. and how Auburn is able to control that. Listen, Tennessee ran on Auburn this past weekend. And the only thing I was thinking of is that Alabama's run game is better than Tennessee's. So how is Auburn going to stop or control or slow down that Alabama offense? That's a question that I don't have an answer for, but you know what? I don't have to have the answer for that one. But it's a big factor, because if Auburn is able to take away the run games somehow, then Mac Jones still has all the weapons that he needs as a quarterback, and he's been terrific.
It's Alabama, it's Auburn, it's the 85th Iron Bowl, and everyone on both sides is fired up for this one. Reporting live for CTKO, I'm William Galloway.
Thanks, William. Awesome report, and of course, thanks to Andy Burcham, the voice of the Auburn Tigers. We've got more CTKO coming up here on WVUA 23.
And welcome back into Crimson Tide Kickoff, and we're joined today on this Iron Bowl Saturday by Danielle Winningham. She is the brand new, relatively new executive director of the Tuscaloosa County Industrial Authority. Danielle, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mike. I'm glad to join you.
A perusal of your bio makes me think you're a Mississippi girl. Is that accurate?
Well, though I am from Mississippi, I am a huge Alabama fan. Roll Tide.
Well, we knew that. You wouldn't have gotten the job if you weren't a Crimson Tide fan, of course.
That's right, of course.
Tell me about the job so far. You've been on the job a few months. I know you have to learn your way around a little bit. What's it been like so far?
Yes, thank you. It's been wonderful so far at the TCIDA. Everyone in the community has been so warm and welcoming, and so I appreciate it very much. The staff here is wonderful. We have 2 employees that have been here for nearly 30 years who are experts at what they do. So it's been great transition coming in. Of course, our board is fantastic, very involved in the community. Very community-minded, and of course economic development-minded as well. So it's been great transition here into Tuscaloosa. Even with COVID going on, virtual meetings have been able to take place, as well as socially distanced and masked meetings. So we've used all the proper protocols and precautions. So I'm grateful to be able to meet all those that I've met so far, and looking forward to meet even more folks here in the county.
You don't have to be on the job very long or at all before you realize the importance of football, and this is a football program on this football Saturday. Make the connection to what you do, what the Tuscaloosa County Industrial Authority does that appreciates and works with and benefits from the importance of this sport in our area.
Of course. I think we've heard a lot about the economic impact of COVID-19 that it has had on the football season, but it impacts the city, it impacts the university, it also impacts the county as a whole. I think I saw a report just yesterday where the university projected their, I think was $137 million economic impact last year over 7 games at the university, and they anticipate that number would drop 80%. So there is a huge economic impact that is had through the football program at the University of Alabama. And so we feel that in various ways, of course, in your tourism, through your hotels, restaurants, bars, the social scene. But I hear around the community and have experienced this firsthand that people around this community are going, they're being responsible in downtown, even though they're not able to tailgate and do some of the things they'd like to do on campus. They're going responsibly into restaurants and supporting their local businesses. And so that's huge. That's a great way to champion and support local business even through this pandemic. And so, economic development and community development are all tied into tourism, they're tied into industrial development as well as small business development. So we're all in this together. This is a team sport, as football is. Economic development is a team sport as well. And so we're all we're coming together, and we're trying to support one another in the community.
Danielle, have you and your family been able to attend a game yet?
We have not attended a game this year.
Okay.
My husband and I have been to several games in the past.
Yeah.
We have not experienced the game at a reduced capacity in the stadium. And so we have gone, though, and supported and watched the games, each game, either in the community or in our home. So
as things loosen up a bit, we'll have to get some tickets for you, and hopefully we'll be able to get everybody back where we'll have close to 100,000 people. Have you had a chance yet soon on the job to really list goals for yourself and for the organization? What are you hoping to accomplish, let's say first in the short term?
Sure, absolutely. So in the short term, I've got kind of a year projection of the things that we need to do to be a highly successful economic development organization. And it starts with really being able to address virtual site selection. And so a lot of what we have to do is around making our sites and buildings available to site selectors, to companies, and to others, so that they know what our products are. You know, the focus of economic development is really around products, projects, and people. And so we want to work with all of the partners at the university and all the community partners to be able to not only draw the talent into the area at the university, but also retain the talent. So we have goals of working with each of those partners to do that. So again, we're focusing more on our comprehensive marketing strategy. We will do a little bit of quite a rebranding that will be for Tuscaloosa Economic Development Authority versus Industrial Development Authority. That way we can embrace more diverse industries. And I think that rebrand and that refresh will be more appealing to site selectors and companies, especially as we make this turn toward recruiting knowledge-based industries and technology industries. I think in the past, we've primarily focused on advanced manufacturing and automotive, which is great, and we are going to support our existing industries. We're going to make sure that we are in there and understanding what they need in terms of resources and supply chain. So we're going to help advance our existing industries here, but we're also going to go ahead and work toward diversification of the economy into that knowledge base
Danielle,
and technology sector.
In our 30 seconds we have left, I know you've already mentioned we're all on the same team, thinking of the city, the county, sports and tourism. All of you are on the same team, aren't you? And that cooperation, I know, must be very important to you going forward.
Absolutely. It is very important that we are all on the same page, that we're working together toward a common goal. Ultimately, we want economic and community success for the entire region, for the entire area. And so we each have a very important piece of that puzzle and pivotal piece to play in that makeup. And so we are reaching across the aisle to our partners and trying to make sure that we are aligning our resources and collaborating in the best way possible to benefit the citizens of Tuscaloosa County and the area.
We'll look forward to 2021. We'll look forward to filling this football stadium up, and we'll look forward to interviewing you in person not too far down the road. Danielle Winningham, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. And a great Iron Bowl Saturday as well. Thank you. Let's go back to Gary.
Thanks, Mike and Danielle. Still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff, Bama legend Cornelius Bennett is still in the running for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the Southeastern Conference made a change to Alabama's upcoming schedule. We'll let you know the latest and the makeup date for the LSU game when we come back. Stick around for more CTKO. Biscuit is a semifinalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Crimson Tide legendary linebacker Cornelius Bennett played 14 years in the National Football League, spending most of his career with the Bills, also played for the Colts and the Falcons. He helped the Bills reach 4 consecutive Super Bowls in the 90s. Bennett finished his NFL career with 1,190 tackles, 31 forced fumbles, 27 fumble recoveries, and 12 interceptions. He deserves to be in. I hope he makes it. Well, the makeup date for Alabama and LSU is now official. On Friday, the Southeastern Conference confirmed that the Tide and the Tigers will play next Saturday, December 5th, at Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge. The game is scheduled for a 7 p.m. kickoff and will be part of a CBS doubleheader. Alabama's game with LSU was originally on tap for November 14th before the SEC was forced to postpone the game due to COVID-19 issues within the LSU program. The move to make up the game next Saturday means that Alabama's game at Arkansas is now scheduled for December 12th, 1 week before the SEC championship game. All right, let's check in with Christopher Pipkin for a final look at the weather forecast. It looks nice, Christopher.
Oh, yeah, it does look nice. We're looking right now here on the Bryant-Denny Stadium on the Walk of Champions. You can see it's a fall day pretty much across much of central Alabama. And here in Tuscaloosa, the pretty trees in the background, not too many people out there just yet, but I'm sure that's going to change here over the next hour or so as we start to get closer to kickoff. Across much of the southeast, though, we are seeing some clouds at this time, but hey, definitely for your football forecast, we are going to see at least these clouds start to increase throughout the day, and of course temperatures in the mid-60s for that kickoff and down into the mid-50s for the end of the game. It's going to be a great time for weather, at least, and for the football game.
Thank you, Chris. Looks great. Ready for a great day. And that is going to do it for Crimson Tide Kickoff here on WVUA 23. A reminder to join William Galloway tonight on the news at 10 for a complete Iron Bowl recap. We're going to leave you with some beautiful shots from right here on the University of Alabama campus. Enjoy the game, everybody. Roll Tide.